grateful that I took advantage because it's something that has put me in touch with my child, or closer to my child and her development.
Are you prepared? We're the Office of Emergency Services, and we're committed to providing the most up-to-date and accurate information so that you and your family can stay safe during an emergency. Visit MendoReady.org. It's our one-stop shop for emergency information. You can sign up for emergency alerts, find your pre-established evacuation zone on our current emergencies map, and find hazard and preparedness information.
Imagine you're faced with a disaster such as a wildfire, and you're ordered to evacuate. I'll bet you wish you had more time in that moment. Now's your chance to buy yourself that time. Sign up for Nixle and Mendo Alerts on our website, MendoReady.org. Do it today.
If you want your family to be as resilient as possible, it's important to take some time today and visit MendoReady.org, where you can look up your pre-established evacuation zones on our current emergencies map. You can also find important tools to help maintain your situational awareness, such as the Alert California wildfire cameras and the Caltrans road conditions cameras. We hope you'll take some time today to prepare so that your family can be Mendo ready. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to call the January 24th, 2024 General Government Committee meeting to order. Lily, could you conduct the roll call?
Chair Hashak.
Here.
Supervisor McGordy.
Here.
Okay, we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. So, Sarah McBurney, would you like to lead us? To the flag. Republic. Under God. All right, so I'd like to welcome Supervisor McGordy to the General Government Committee.
Thank you.
And we're going to start with item 2A, which is discussion and possible action, including providing recommendations to staff and a referral to the Board of Supervisors recommending approval of the County of Mendocino Cannabis Department monthly update for December 2023. And before we get going on that, I'd just like to thank the department, Steve Dunnicliffe, the advocates, and the General Government Committee for the work in getting the ordinance changes passed by the Board of Supervisors yesterday. And I think that that will provide a lot of streamlining for the department and help us get everyone to their annual licensure through the state by the end of the year. So really, I think it was a huge step and a lot of work went into it. And certainly, it's very much appreciated by you, Sarah, and all your staff at the department. With that, you can take it away.
Thank you, and good morning, supervisors. My name is Sarah McBurney. I'm the Senior Program Manager with the Mendocino County Cannabis Department. I have today our December of 2023 monthly report to share with everyone. I think we are, as a department, very excited about this report. It is the first time in our monthly reports that we've been able to outline more CCBLs issued versus to review in our process. So it was the first time we kind of saw that number shift, and I think it's a pretty big win for the department, the community, and the county as a whole. So very excited about that representation. We have, during the month of December, we were able to issue complete 59 CCBLs. As we kind of get into the nitty-gritty of these numbers that are left to review, we did bring in a new category for our December breakdown, which is our CCBLs numbers that are withdrawn. So we have our renewals issued, our initial issuance, and our withdrawn numbers. So as we complete all of these applications that are currently in queue, I think it's important to note completion over issuance and getting to the bottom of everyone reviewed in program. So,
Sarah, a quick question. So on withdrawal, what precisely does that mean?
if I may through the chair.
Yes.
So for withdraw, it is an applicant-driven just withdraw from the program. So the department will accept a application for withdrawal from the applicant, and it will state the reason for wanting to withdraw, and they just are removed from the program and no longer, liable for any type of fees or taxes associated with that permit.
I'm curious about the withdrawals. Is it because they reach a point in the application process they can't move forward, or what happens?
There could be a number of reasons that an applicant may withdraw their application. Some of the ones I've seen have either been, they just are not choosing to continue on in the program. They've pursued different avenues of no longer wanting to be in the program. It may be due to financial reasons, anything of that nature. But applicants can withdraw for a number of different reasons.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And then I think one thing that, as we work through the completion of these applications as well, the department took on a project starting in the month of December to kind of help identify applicants who may have their DCC license that we could not identify on our end. And so with that, the department emailed out in December 203 email requests for DCC licensures. And so that request went out via email to 203 applicants and their agents, and basically requested one of three informations that could be sorted out into buckets. So the first one request was to these applicants, do you have a DCC license? And if so, can you please send that to us? The second one was, I don't have a DCC license, but I do want to continue on within the program. And then the third one was, I don't have a DCC license, I do not wish to continue on in the program, and I want to withdraw from the program. I think that it was an important project for the department to take on. It was quite time consuming. However, it engaged 203 applications that maybe haven't had any type of correspondence with the department since their initial application, perhaps all the way back in 2017. So this was the first time that these applicants have really received outreach and communication and interest in getting their CCBL to completion. And so from that, we did receive about 70 responses. We got it down to 130 applicants that we're still waiting to hear a response from. And I think the important part of this project is it allows us to see who wants to remain in the program, who wants to be in that regulated market and still be a part of the Mendocino County Cannabis Department and be licensed with us. And so we're still awaiting about 130 responses from applicants. So this month, the department did take on re-engaging with these applicants via another email, a USPS certified letter, as well as a regular letter. Again, just wanting the same type of information. And we're hopeful to receive these responses. We sent out a Canna note last Friday as well, requesting responses. The 130 applicants that we had to send out these letters have been deemed non-responsive from the department. We're really just wanting to have some type of engagement from them. And if we do not receive responses from the applicants, they are subject to denial from their application in the program. And so our denials would take impact February 10th. So the department is requesting that if you are an applicant and you've received this response or this request from the department, please respond to us. It's okay if you don't have your DCC license, you can still remain in the program under review. It's important you cannot cultivate without that DCC licensure, but you can still remain in program and under review and on your way to compliance. So we're requesting responses from that. That'll definitely help us achieve our goal of getting our DCC deadline of December 31st, 2024 with these applications, and understanding who has a provisional license can be sent to the contract planners, who can remain under review with MCD, and who's going to remain in the program. Sorry.
Excuse me. But with those 203, what bucket are they in? So, I'm just trying to figure this out. So we have number of applications and renewals assigned to contract planners. We have some that are assigned to MCD planners. And are these outside of those numbers?
The 203 are currently in this report captured in the MCD under review category. So they are a part of the number of applications and renewals assigned to MCD planners. So there's 242 total noted in the December report. Out of those, it was the 203 that got that email.
Oh, okay.
And then from there, we were able to receive a number of responses that did have an active and valid DCC license that we were able to shift over to our 4-leaf contract planners. And then one other logjam that I think is worth noting is our CDFW response time. So we were able to move forward with a policy last year that basically allowed us to move forward if we hadn't received a CDFW response within 45 days of deeming an application that had less than significant impact. So the department is moving forward on with that currently. As of right now, we still have 28 referrals outstanding that have been deemed to have more than a less than significant impact, so we cannot move forward on those as a department. As we continue our review process and we continue into these applications, that number will grow. And so with the new proposed streamlined ordinance language, that 45 days will decrease to 30 days, which will allow the department to move less than significant impact applications forward, but we still will have a logjam noted with the applications that have been deemed to have significant impact. And so that could pose a potential issue. We're still in January, so I don't think we're there yet, but it could pose a potential issue down the line as we're trying to get these applications pushed forward to that DCC deadline if we're stuck on them and we can't move them forward.
Okay, I had a conversation, I think the week before last, with Angela Liebenberg from CDFW, and it was a very productive conversation. I felt that we were talking about the kind of the log jam happening and what they were doing about it, and she was committed to calendaring some days for her staff to really work on these cannabis permits, and so to move them along. And I think that was a productive conversation, and hopefully I think she was saying that Monday was supposed to be the first day that she had calendared for her staff to work on just this issue. So hopefully that will provide some results. I appreciate their collaboration on it too.
Absolutely. It's appreciated by the department, and thank you for having that conversation as well. Out of these 28 referrals, the next line in the report is the range of days that it may be have since we've received communication, and some of these go back to 226 days that we've waited on correspondence from CDFW. So definitely appreciate that collaboration and getting these applications pushed through. We were able to hear back from CDFW on our SSHR screening tool, which was phenomenal. Really appreciated just getting that response and being able to have the conversation internally about next steps, and we're continuing that development of that SSHR screening tool in hopes to provide it back to CDFW for final review.
So Supervisor McGordy probably remembers back when we were the ad hoc about talking about the screening tool, and I think the summer before last. So anyway, we're still working on refining it, and hopefully it will help to streamline things too. So you haven't missed that much in the last year.
Well, I'm impressed with how much has been done though in the last 9 months. When I think about when Director Nevedal left, and everything that's happened since has been just like at warp speed compared to what was going on before. Well, I do have a question about this. When in your report you have referral response received, the longest response time 200 days and the quickest 28, and average is 74. So for the 200-day ones, is that like really complex for them to evaluate, or why the slowness?
If I may, through the chair?
Yes.
So for this one, I would have to look in specifically, the complexity of this review. from my understanding, this was one of the ones that it just took the longest to receive that response time. And so this would have been an application that was deemed to not have less than significant impact, but we did receive a CDFW response. It was just 200 days after that initial request. And so, as I can't speak directly to why this one took that 200 days, I think it's important to note that it is a logjam that we're currently experiencing, and just overall kind of long response times from CDFW, which could be problematic for the department and our applicants as we get near our DCC deadline.
And if you remember, Supervisor McGordy, about the staff that we had hired for CDFW, and that those contracts expired or the people have gone away, and so now they're just dealing with the normal staff that they have, because we weren't, it just didn't work out with the timing for those 2 staff people. So they're dealing with the staff that they have, and along with their regular workload.
So is there anything we should be doing on our end, like calling up Chuck Bonham and say, what's the deal? Would that be helpful?
Well, the conversation I had the other day with Angela Liebenberg was very productive, I think.
So you think we're on a good track and we don't need to worry about that?
Yeah, because they're scheduling now time for them to work on it.
Okay. So we're good.
And we're going to check back in a couple months,
Okay.
see how it's going.
And I think it's important to note too, as we're addressing these issues in January, I think we've got a really good time frame and collaborative effort on this, because we're early enough to catch these and try to move them forward in a timely manner in an effort to make that deadline as well. So I think the conversation is right where it needs to be, and we need to keep the gas on and keep attention on it, but I think we're on the right path. Okay, next, new applications. So all phase 3 new applications can be submitted online through our Excel platform. Part of what I wanted to know is through collaboration with our LACO partners, we do have a total of 7 Excel how-tos published on our website for applicants as they go through. And so the department's really proud of the development of our training tools for both our internal and external partners, and getting those online for everyone. Moving into our site inspections, so the department has completed the comparative analysis of our virtual site inspections versus boots on the ground site inspections. We did come up with a site inspection policy, which definitely helps associate and recognize any application that could be deemed applicable for a virtual site inspection versus a boots on the ground site inspection. That policy is available on our website. And allows kind of that association of how the department is tracking and deeming those. For the cost of a virtual versus on-site site inspection, I do want to note that that cost is the same, although the virtual site inspection does remove travel time and is a little bit quicker to conduct in terms of not having that travel time to get to those remote inspections. The site inspection still takes about 45 minutes to an hour, even through a virtual platform. And although we're not spending the gas and cost of deterioration on the vehicle to get to those site inspections, our virtual software that we use for site inspections is still a large cost for the department to recover and incur. So that site inspection is now baked into our renewal fee on the new fee Exhibit X. And so that fee is associated with the renewal fee, and either virtual or on person, it's the same cost for our applicants in there.
So I have a question about that. From your perspective, do you find that the on-site inspections are more informative to you?
If I may, through the chair? Yes, in my opinion, I think the on-site provides the applicants, especially our new applicants, a really great pathway to interface with the department, get to know who they're going to be working with, associate maybe any questions that they couldn't ask through or wouldn't want to ask through a virtual platform. To me, that in-person connection is still something that can't be beat. However, I think that the virtual platform does offer ease for applicants that have been in program for a long time, have had, have shown proof that they want to remain compliant, have shown, they are not having a notice of any violations, anything like that, are just really a solid applicant and CCBL holder with the department and on path to just maintaining that good compliance with us. I think that virtual tool can be really helpful for them. So, part of our policy is that all initial issuance does receive that boots on the ground inspection. And I think that really provides that opportunity for our applicants that you can't beat, but then allows them to have that virtual inspection if their site is qualifying for those future kind of ease of interactions.
Yeah, as a former University of California farm advisor, I find it's really imperative to sort of size things up when you go out to visit a client, to see what their physical layout is, to see what their capacities are. I mean, you can just kind of sense who can do what based on the resources that they have, and working with them to get into compliance based on what you're sensing their capabilities are. I think it's really helpful.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think, with kind of all of the above noted, so our ease of site inspections, the call out about the CDFW logjam, and then noting that the non-responsive project we took on, with all of those kind of taken into play, I think, our Gantt chart, the department believes that we are on track for a December 31st, 2024 deadline. As we move into the EIR, the department cannot provide any specific concrete timelines as to when that will officially happen. What we can say is we're on path for that EIR process happening and being complete before the deadline. With our ordinance streamline update, Supervisor Hashak, you spoke to that earlier today, but based on the board item yesterday, it's anticipated that our new streamline proposed ordinance will hopefully go into effect in early March. So we're very excited about that. I know it will save applicants a lot of trouble moving forward and helps kind of ease that process. So we're excited about that. In terms of our local equity entrepreneur program grant, our LEAP round 5 application, although we were supposed to hear back on our funding status on January 22nd, we are still waiting with bated breath for those application results. Our application is still under review. So when the department does have those, that award notification, and either way, we will make that announcement via Cannabis. So we encourage applicants to really stick close to that. As a part of that equity grant, it did propose our new equity criteria as well, for our applicants that either would like to join the program or potentially need to requalify under a different category outside of the 5-mile radius.
And with that criteria, it includes the map, the DCC map that includes like northern Mendocino County and some other areas.
Yes, that is correct. So as a part of that criteria, it includes the DCC mapping tool. Applicants, if you're curious to see if you qualify for that, you can absolutely go on. There's a link on our website to the DCC mapping tool that will show you if your address qualifies for a equity zone. And additionally, attached to this month's report, we had our cartographer use a mapping tool to kind of make where we saw that outline boundaries for the applicable areas with the DCC mapping tool as well.
Very good.
Our audit findings from the LEAP, round 3 is still under review. We did submit the closeout for that on November 28th, 2023. The department anticipates a total of $54,819.39 indirect technical assistance funding that will need to be returned from round 3. No funding was unspent from our direct grants and loans categories, so we're very excited about that. Again, just want to appreciate and thank everyone that was a part of that review process and getting those contracts pushed through and funded through Cobblestone. We are currently hosting a LEAP Direct Grant Amendment window. So the department previously announced this via Cannabis that anyone who had received LEAP direct grant funds in the past and has a check and had a previously approved budget, if they would like to amend that budget, perhaps they had carved out funds for something that they no longer need, and realize that either through the cost of goods going up or something like that, they need to shift that, they can submit that amendment request to MCD through our cannabis program at mendocinocounty.gov to get that process started. Previously, we announced that that grant amendment period would close on January 31st of this month. However, in talks with the department and applicants, I think that it's important that we keep that window open, and we allow direct grant amendments, as needed by the applicants. So if you have a direct grant amendment that is needed, please reach out to that email, and we'll get the process started for you. For our LJAGP, Local Jurisdiction Assistance Grant Program, we are very excited that our direct grant manual that was developed in collaboration with GGC, the advocacy groups, was approved. We were, for Resolution 22056, the board did authorize the cannabis director to amend, update, and implement the program manual. So we have attached a copy of the approved program manual to this board meeting minutes, and are excited to announce timelines for that grant opening here very soon. Hopefully within the next couple weeks, we'll have timelines for applicants to look at and review and start applying for that LJAGP direct grant. It's currently $25,000 per applicant, and it is a reimbursement model.
Now, with those direct grants, then don't we need to have the EIR done first so that people know what they need to do, or how's that work? And there's also comments about the public input for that EIR. Do we have any idea how that's going to take place? So there's two big questions.
Those are very big questions. I think at this point, it's not quite clear how the EIR is going to impact potential cultivators that do receive the funds. I think one thing that's important to note is the funding is meant to help cultivators transition to their annual licensure prior to that deadline of December 31st, 2024. And I think that as the LJAGP program is running, it's running on the same timeline as the EIR. So if we were to wait for the completion of the EIR and then try to disperse these grant fundings, I think it would be really tight for our applicants and our local cultivators. And so it is something that I think we'll have to run simultaneously. In our LJAGP manual, we were able to, with the collaboration of everyone involved, we were able to put in some really great reimbursement activities in here for our applicants. So I think that will help ultimately with their EIR, even though it's running congruently.
Okay. And then public input?
On the manual?
On the EIR. Do we have any idea about anything from the state about how the public will have input into it?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
Steve Dunicliffe. So we do have Deputy County Counsel Jared Schwass on standby to try to assist with any specific questions about the EIR. We know from Ascent that they believe that things are on track, but again, as far as specifics about when public input or comment will be allowed or what those windows will be, we may be able to bring Deputy Counsel Schwass in.
Right.
Do we want to do that? Or
Yeah, if he's available. Yeah. Okay.
okay, so we'll try to get him noted. I think.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can you hear
Good
me now?
morning. Okay. Deputy County Counsel.
Hi. Yeah. So, the regards to the public comment, we are still meeting with the DCC, and DCC is still working on finalizing the EIR. So, if the public does have comments, and we have been relaying those comments to the DCC, so we act as the mediator or the liaison for the public as well in those discussions.
Okay, so if the public had some kind of comment, they would go through you or through the department? Or
Correct.
through the department, okay. Very good.
Okay, and that concludes my presentation on the monthly report. Were there any further questions?
Supervisor McGordy?
The Gantt chart, is that part of your report?
If I may through the chair? Yes, so we do include a monthly Gantt chart in all of our monthly updates. So on our Gantt chart, it will show the number of applications assigned to both MCD and our contract planners for leaf, in addition to our applications that have been completed as well. And so with that, it will show the timeline for our DCC deadline of December 31st, 2024. And it will also show an ongoing workload for our renewals, because renewals will continue to happen throughout the program and phase 3 applications as well.
So with the Gantt chart, and I see that there's a darker green versus a lighter green on the edges, as in phase 1 for the MCD assigned applications. So what's the difference between the two?
So the difference of the solid green line versus kind of the half green line, if you will, is the kind of the phase out or continuation. So with their phase 1 and phase 2 applications, that lighter line kind of shows the phase out of those. And with the renewals, that just shows that continuing workload as well. So, you know, as we get to the end of these applications, there's a chance that the workload between 4-leaf and MCD can balance or intershift between those. So if, you know, for example, the department MCD completes their applications in a very rapid timeline, and we were able to start grabbing additional applications from 4-leaf and complete those as well, that could be a shared workspace. And so what I can tell you is that the Gantt chart does show we're on track, and that workload may shift depending upon which contractor or MCD staff is able to get to it first.
So according to the chart as I read it, that the 4-leaf contract will run through June or so, but we should be able to get the phase 1 and 2 applicants finished by April, May.
Yeah, so with the contract, our monetary numbers, what's left in our current contract is about 3 months full of what we've seen historically billed each month from them. So depending upon total number of full-time equivalent employees, workload output, those numbers could flex a bit. You know, so I think that's why we have those kind of faded lines throughout June, just to kind of see that workload shift if needed. And we'll keep an eye out close on that contract as well, just to make sure our monetary piece lines up with that workload.
Okay. Thank you.
And you have hours listed there. What is that in reference to?
If I may through the chair, can you please, was it hours or
Yeah,
hours?
so we look in the heading of the that starts with milestone description, total months needed in hours. What is the hours?
It's the hours per applicant to process it. Is that
That's come down quite a bit from when it was 100, 200, huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we did our most recent time studies for Exhibit X shows about 25 hours for initial application and 15 hours for our renewal applications. And we're pretty proud of those numbers, but yes, it's come down quite a bit.
So what changed?
If I may, through the chair.
Of course you can.
Yeah, go ahead.
You know, it's hard to put one thing kind of as the leading cause for change and increased efficiency. What I can tell you is I am extremely proud of the team we have. Each and every one of them brings their own set of strengths to the table, in addition to a really great example of how we should all lead in customer service and public service. With these applications, it is truly an applicant-driven process, so we can only take applicants as far as they want to go. And so our applicants, in addition, extremely proud of them, and the folks that I think, to quote Supervisor Hashak, and I think it was last month's GGC, are crash dummies, if you will, that have really just stayed in this program and stayed true to it and continued to comply and be a piece of this long issuance process. And so I think, both our applicants, I think the GGC meetings have helped, the board has helped, the community members and their input with streamlining ordinances and different policies and procedures. The leadership that we've given and attention that we've given to this department, I think cannot be underrepresented and awarded. I'm extremely proud of everyone that has gotten the program to where it is today. We have a lot of work to do, but I have a lot of faith in the team that's behind it. And I truly feel that, and the numbers show that we're on track to get there. So, although that doesn't give you one answer, hopefully that gives you kind of a synopsis of where we've gotten.
Yeah, well, it's impressive. It's one of the success stories that we dream about as supervisors, is efficiency going up in some of the things that we do. And especially after yesterday's discussion with Planning Building Services, how long it takes to make changes in ordinances and things. So I just remember a year ago feeling like our program was dead in the water and it was going nowhere. And now it appears that we're getting people properly licensed and it's not taking forever. And, there were critics on the sideline that said this shouldn't take that long. I don't know how someone could spend $200 on this application. So, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you to Steve, because I know Steve was an integral part of
Yes.
trying to get this fixed, and along with John Burks and the support you had from Darcy Antle. So I'm pleased to see that this is starting to look a little bit more successful.
All right, very good. Are we ready for a public comment?
I believe so.
Okay.
Good morning, Stephen Amato, President of the MCA. We would like to reflect, we are very grateful at all the progress that has been made and the CCBLs that have been getting issued, and the small but very mighty team at the MCD that has really done an incredible job, and the GGC. This whole structure has really shown in the last year of how much its benefit has been for the whole process. And we would ask everyone to make sure that they read our questions in our memo, so I don't have to spell them all out here. We had some questions about the virtual inspections, which seem they could be found on the website now, so we'll go and we'll look at that before I come back with any other questions. About the EIR, that is a very important topic to us, and we had some really specific questions that we'd like to have answered, even though we're waiting upon the state, but they should be able to answer some of those that could really help our applicants in their process and getting to their licensing. And it seems as if maybe we should is there a certain point person? Should we be directing those questions directly to Mr. Schwass so that we can get proper answers and a communication back and forth, so we're not always just bringing them here and adding more to the chain of communication than that's necessary, so we can get that more of a direct line of processing. It's great that we're starting to see that withdrawals are being tallied in the monthly report. I know this might be a little bit of an extra task, but I'd like to see where we were at this last year, so we can, I understand that process just started, but I think it is a very important thing to keep our eye on, to see the health of what's going on with applications in this county and where people are at in the industry. And one other thing that we brought up on our memo that we feel is important for us to start discussing here is really reviewing our tax structure and how we're taxing cultivators. There's some counties, like Sonoma County, uses a square footage that's an actual square footage of what a cultivator actually cultivates in that year. We feel might be a much fairer way of going about than this whole true-up system. I mean, this is going to be the last year, I don't know if it's fiscally or whatever way you want to define it, that we get this reduction that has been put in that was excellent and has really helped people out. But before that expires, we should really start that communication and that process of how we're going to be moving forward. So it can really help people out a lot, especially, you know, considering where our industry has gone. And it was pointed out in the Board of Supervisor meeting yesterday how some of these topics like fallowing and such are being discussed of where to put them into our legislation rather than whether or not we're doing them at all, which it just feels good as, you know, leadership of the MCA is a stakeholder group that represents, you know, the cultivators and industry members in this county, and as a personal cultivator, the normalization is just really like the most positive thing that really feels well, like no longer feel like we're viewed as pirates, like trying to like, you know, pillage and rob and steal, that we're actually moving towards being a part of real industry and really can be a major impact on this county for years to come. Because this is one of our major precious resources here in this county, and this continuation of normalization will really just help out everywhere. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Hannah Nelson. It's lovely to see you all. Forgive me, I'm a little punchy today. I'm tired. And I want to apologize up front that I never seem to have time to say, through the chair, may I? So, blanket statement, through the chair, please. And I really appreciate the politeness with respect to Ms. McBurney's etiquette. And speaking of Ms. McBurney and the entire team and Mr. Dunicliffe, it really is, I've said this to each one of you, and we'll shout it from the rooftops, the spirit of collaboration, the intense amount of work and dedication that is coming from that small, lean, dedicated staff is amazing and such a welcome change. The customer, I believe that they have an opportunity because of all the work that this committee and the full board and other collaborations have resulted in, allows them to be able to provide the customer service, which I know they always wanted to. And it's just really, I want to always recognize that we're at this point, and I really, really appreciate it. What changed? It is the leadership, the dedication, the putting the extra time through working out these processes, both in this forum and in independent forums. The direct collaboration that has occurred with County Council, and I hope that the interim County Council will continue in that spirit, because the dividends pay off tremendously over the long run for everybody, as opposed to just handling everything at an official board meeting. Having that upfront collaboration is key. Same thing with the grants. That's how we were able to finally get a decent LJGAP manual in, is that there was collaboration. Same thing with the resurrected LEAP grant application that was that we're waiting to hear from. And that's really a testament to the dedication, the attitude of the department, as well as the stakeholders, and really trying to come together. So it's a feel-good moment and should be celebrated, and hopefully will continue. With respect to some of, I think Ms. McBurney mentioned withdrawals, and there's a withdrawal number that was listed for the month or for December. I had emailed Ms. McBurney, speaking of collaboration, asking her for some better numbers about withdrawals and denials, and I think she's still working.
Time's up.
Good collaboration.
Okay.
It's really important that we get to the bottom of, yeah.
I thought you were going to be done after the kumbaya moment.
Yeah, I'm going to loop back around to it.
Okay.
Who's punchy now? So with respect to withdrawals, it's important, like the preliminary numbers that Ms. McBurney gave to me, so far in 2024, 19 people. That's January. We're not even done with January. 19 people withdraw. You asked for some of the reasons why. People are tapped out regulatorily, financially, and in every other ways. And as much as we've been working hard to catch up, to lessen the burdens regulatorily and focus on what's really critical and important to protect public safety and the environment, there's still a plethora of regulations that are very anomalous and really specific to cannabis that people have to contend with, and the expenses. And that's at every level. No level is exempt from the overburden that is placed on cannabis until it's changed to an agricultural crop. I think that we'll see those burdens continue. Hopefully they'll lessen. And we certainly appreciate the efforts to make it better. But in overall, 244 people have withdrawn. So, you know, that's a big chunk of our licensed community that just said, we can't do it. And I see the specific reasons because I helped them prepare the withdrawal forms. And one more last comment on withdrawals. To charge a withdrawal fee is like a knife in the heart. And I earnestly request that that issue be looked at. I have people who have dedicated all of their life savings and their will and their attempt to do this, and found through no fault of their own, they just couldn't make it. And also the delay in grants. And again, not this current set of people, but there's been a mismanagement of grants and efforts, and the states delayed things and whatever, and people couldn't hang in there when they were promised funds for those specific additional costs regarding environmental stuff. And anyway, so
We'll look at those withdrawal fees.
yeah, I think
the
that would be
process.
good. With respect to requests for information, this department has been great about really following up, but there are some legacy data problems in the system. They inherited multiple systems that didn't maintain accurate records, so reaching out. So I was really happy to hear that you have, that they have also sent letters to these people who haven't responded, because I know email addresses are wrong still, and people who have already withdrawn are getting these requests. So it's great that they're doing all those efforts. And really appreciate that they're including in that the message of just contact us. You don't have to even provide us with the thing yet. If there's a reason, just contact us. So we really appreciate that approach. With respect to CDFW, I think that really, and I appreciate Supervisor Hashtag you taking the extra initiative to contact CDFW to check in, and I'm glad to hear that they're going to rededicate their efforts, and I certainly appreciate the difficulty that they've had in terms of dedicating staff and thinking that things were coming when they weren't on this end. But I do think that we should at some point review again in maybe a couple of months and see whether or not we need to strengthen the language of the ordinance to have a more strict op law type deadline. But let's hope for the best over the next few months. I do think, and it is like Groundhog Day, Supervisor McGordy, you know, a year and a half ago, we were talking about Exhibit A and working with CDFW to change that. Chantal and I provided a red line version, and a year and a half later, we still haven't heard a peep about it. So we're really hoping that that actually can be brought back to this forum or presented to the public. I think that County Council said that they were following up on it. Deputy County Council Schwartz, I believe, said that he had an upcoming meeting. We still haven't heard, and that's been 3 months since the last time we checked. And I think that that tool, even though it's small potatoes in the scheme of things, again, if every thing that we're doing is looking to streamline and make sure we're operating efficiently. That's one of those things that we identified a long time ago. I'm happy to hear that there's a policy on the website regarding site inspection. I hadn't realized that, and I appreciate that, and I apologize if I didn't see that in a counter note or something. I do think that there needs to be a careful look at the difference of inspection fees for remote inspections and on-site inspections. The software, which is expensive to maintain, was already paid for other purposes or in general. So it really can't be used again as the reason why off-site inspections or remote inspections are the same cost. They're using that software to review the SSHR, whether it needs to be referred or not. So I think we really need to look carefully at those fees and the fee differences. I certainly appreciate that the first inspection, I think it's a reasonable policy to make the first inspection an on-site inspection and then subsequent inspections potentially remote, and if not, then having really clear-cut criteria. But regardless, there needs to be a difference in the fees if it's really taking less travel time and less wear and tear on vehicles and greenhouse gases, in fact.
If I could just interrupt for a second.
Sure.
So the software we're speaking about, I remember we're going to use Excella, and I remember there was a move to have that for as kind of the principal way of recording the documentation for the permits. So where are we now?
If I may, through the chair?
Sure.
Thank you. So yes, Excella is currently Mendocino County Cannabis Department's permitting software, licensing software. So Excella is up and running. It went live June 1st of 2023, and it is used to house all documentation related to site inspections. The software specifically used for virtual site inspections is outside of the Excella platform. It's called Planet Labs. And that software is a very expensive cost, about $350,000 a year annually.
Thanks.
And it's currently covered with the use of our LJAGP funds. However, post LJAGP grant funds, that would be an expense that the department would have to pick up. So if we were to relay virtual inspections just based on the cost of that software alone, virtual site inspections would be quite a bit more expensive than in person. We can hire, 2.5 full-time equivalency with that rate. So,
Any other comments, Steve? Because I remember you were that was one of the tasks you were trying to get done.
If I may, through the chair. So just kind of talking on this topic a little bit more. So yeah, there is the Planet Labs. There are other satellite imagery services as well that the department is looking at that might be more cost effective when grant funds are away. Planet Labs, we believe, is the best program, but certainly we are looking at other more cost effective ways to do it. I also wanted to emphasize that as we're talking about the cost of virtual versus on-site inspections, the way that those have been baked into the renewal fees, we're able to smooth that a little bit throughout the program. And so there was confusion with the previously adopted fees. We had a renewal fee and a special inspection fee, both of which were needed to complete a renewal. Now we have renewals that include the cost of the policy required on-site inspections, as well as what we anticipated we'd be able to accomplish with the satellite imagery. And most importantly, we intend to be tracking both our time and dialing in and focusing the actual cost of the program for future fee hearings.
Okay.
That helps.
My apologies for interrupting you.
Quite all right. Thank you for the questions. With respect to the Planet Labs, it's already been paid for, so the applicants should not be paying again for that during the period that it's covered under the LJGAP, and that really needs to be looked at and teased out of the baked-in fees. And renewal fees shouldn't have, if somebody's already had an on-site inspection, which they needed to have the original issuance, they shouldn't necessarily have to have the on-site inspection during renewal. So again, I think that, and I'm not criticizing anybody, I just think that these are important fees that literally every dollar is the difference between somebody staying in versus out of the regulated system. So I think it's important and fair for us to really look at that, besides the fact that fees are cost recovery. And while there can be some amortization and some spreading, I think that it's important and we owe the public teasing out what is actually incurred and at what point and what's already covered by grant money versus not, and then perhaps raising it. With respect to the EIR, and I just have to say that the list of questions that we had submitted in writing were very specific and regarding what's the timing, and by the way, the comment ability for the public, I would imagine, is the traditional legal process for any EIR with public notice of hearings and input and whatnot. So it's not so much about input in the traditional EIR process, it's more about the interrelation right now of the timing because of the provisional license program going away at the state level, and more importantly and more practically for all of the applicants and for the department, I think, is the interrelation of the site-specific reviews and how the individual studies that might be required or additional work is going to play out. And this is particularly relevant to the rollout of these grants. And that's why there's been a voice of inquiry for the last 6 months with some urgency, because people have to plan how are they going to apply for funds that could cover one of many items, and there's not sufficient funds to cover all of the items if they don't know what they're going to be doing.
That's what we talked about earlier.
Exactly. So I am urging the county to communicate again further in detail with the state and really try to get some feedback about timing of these issues, because it matters greatly and it will make the difference of people being able to hang in there or not if they know what's coming up. With respect to the old LEAP grant, it's great that only $50-something thousand had to be returned. That's really great. But I'm interested in hearing what happened to the other. At first it was thought that almost 500,000 had to be returned, or 450 or something like that. So I'm just curious about wow, great. How did it happen that we didn't have to return another 400? And with respect to the effort of rolling out that last grant stuff at the end of the year, there was heroic work done by MCD, and it's so greatly appreciated.
Right?
There are,
Let's
I'm going to wrap it up very
wrap it
soon.
up. Yeah.
There are some ordinance issues that I do think that we have to bring back for discussion, and I know that the next GGC meeting is going to also include other topics and not just cannabis. And so I hope that we can make some time for some kind of a workshop on those issues, because while we got a lot accomplished yesterday, there are some critical issues that still need to be dealt with that were in fact acknowledged to be referred back to this committee for a discussion. So I hope we can schedule that. And I really, really appreciate Sarah in particular, but all the staff for the listening to feedback on what would pragmatically be helpful, not just in terms of programmatically, but specifically about grants and how to roll them out. And just want to say that one more time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to turn to the department. Do you have any comments about any of those issues? Especially,
Sarah McBurney, Senior Program Manager for Mendocino County Cannabis Department. I do have a couple of comments. I want to just speak to really quickly Steve Amato's comments in regards to, for the EIR and discussions with County Council and just the department in general. If the department can be the point person for any questions coming through for the EIR process, that would be fantastic. It'll allow us to streamline the process and communication with both DCC and County Council office in general. In terms of the taxes that were brought up by the memo brought forth by MCA, it's the department and my beliefs that the taxes were adopted by referendum, and I don't know that we can change it, but just to speak on that a little bit. Now moving to Hannah.
If I may, through the chair, I believe you had maybe one more person in the audience that wanted to speak at public comments. I wasn't sure if the chair wanted to wait.
We're going to continue on.
We're just wanted to confirm that.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
Okay, and then for Hannah's, I think what's important to note with our withdraw numbers, there absolutely has been an uptick in withdrawals throughout the months of December and January 2024, and I think that's largely in part due to the department's outreach to the 203 applicants. From there, we did find applicants who had withdrawn in previous years, and for whatever reason, that wasn't captured by the department. So some of these are historical withdrawals that are just now being noted by the department, or they're applicants who haven't heard from the department in many years and maybe thought that they were just done. So I think that as we continue to work through these unresponsive applicants, we will see an uptick in both withdrawals and denials. And the department will continue to capture those numbers on monthly report and report that visibility for everyone. And also important to note that we have had several iterations of software in the department. So as we continue this outreach to each applicant, we are looking through all iterations of the software to deem the most appropriate way to get a hold of these applicants. It is our hope, desire, want to ensure that they stay in program. And so we're trying every single possible outreach possible to get a hold of them.
Quick question on that. So when this is all said and done, Excella will be the official software of your department, and hopefully it'll track pretty much all known information about the applicant and their operation. So you'll be able to do things like sort the type of licenses and where they're located and you know, their production area.
If I may, through the chair? Yes, so to confirm, Excella is our authoritative data source. However, the department felt that it was appropriate as we do potentially look at the denial of a lot of different applications. We try all outreach possible. So
Sure.
Although Excella should have the most up-to-date contact information and is where we're pulling all of our initial data set, as we potentially move to, you know, a lot of denials, we want to make sure that we're trying all outreach possible.
And Excella was chosen because it's compatible with the state, that they're using the same software, so there's no compatibility issues if you want to do reports between the state and Mendocino County.
Yeah, we are in constant communication with the DCC. We do weekly reporting and data sharing between them. I think that as we continue to perfect the data that was uploaded from Trackit into Excella, and just, you know, the different types of working relationships with the state. For example, our license numbers are different, so trying to get those to mesh based on the APN, whatever that may look like. So just ensuring that the data sharing that we are doing is the most beneficial possible for all parties involved. It's still definitely underway, but it's getting better each day, I would say.
Yeah, that's great. It's one of the nightmares that Mendocino County has had, is partial implementation of complicated softwares, and hats off to the IT department for helping out and trying to keep everyone on the straight and narrow on this, because I think that's absolutely critical that we, you know, come up to the 21st century and be current with staff that can actually operate the software that we spend a lot of money on.
Yes, we are in Excella every day, as are our applicants. So I think each day is more improvement being noted.
Thank you.
Thank you. going back to Hannah's questions, one thing I want to touch on is the LEAP grant. So to specify, the $54,000 noted in the December report was specifically from round 3. We did have a round 1 and 2 audit finding for a total of $418,526.20 that was returned to GoBiz during the month of November and is noted on our November monthly report as well. So the total number there is right around 460, 470 with mental math. But yes, so that number is higher in total than noted in the December report. But for round 3, it was much smaller, 54,000. And the hope is with any additional funding, that number is no funds returned. So, okay, I think that touches everything.
Okay, thank you. And that was a great effort to make sure that we were getting that money out by the end of October, right? Okay, Corinne. I want to stay in the good graces of our interim county council, so.
Thank you very much for noticing. Corinne Powell, cultivator. I too am a little punchy, as I was at the end of the meeting yesterday afternoon. So I'd like to make a clarifications on that in a moment. But I want to welcome Supervisor McGorty back to this process. I was heartened when his name came up in the committee assignments because I knew he did have background and that he has been accessible to the community, and I'm happy that he's back with this effort. And I also want to express a tremendous amount of appreciation for Supervisor Haschak, who has taken on the lion's share of committee assignments and work in this calendar year. I didn't count them all up, but I know that you are more than a representative on the list of assignments. So thank you very much for all of your work for the county. I appreciate it. I want to welcome the interim county council to this effort. And I think it may be not just my personalized interpretation, but you can see that the community has an engagement, even though we're few in numbers. We have a very deep engagement in making cannabis a viable industry here. There's a cultural legacy. I'm not quite sure where you came from and how much cannabis history you've been able to absorb, but there is a very vital community here that is contributory to the economy, and those of us who are continuing to help make this a viable operation are passionate. And sometimes we get overly passionate, but we're working very hard to maintain not only a lifestyle and a livelihood, but to bring an asset to the county that is rare. I'm here to commend the MCD on all of their efforts and echo all the other comments. They are becoming a more and more reliable partner, and that's the direction that I'm hoping we all will go, is into partnership together. Interim County Council, you may not know all the history as things have developed over the years, but I'm sure if there's anything you'd like to know from the constituent community, please feel free to reach out. The Trade Association is a viable resource, as is Ms. Nelson, who has been a stalwart attorney in the field for decades, and any other farmer like myself could give you personal information. You may notice that the atmosphere is a little different in yesterday's meeting and today's meeting as interaction with public and staff is concerned. And historically, there has been, I would say, a very conservative attitude coming from county council. And yes, the obligation is to represent the county as a client. But in some processes, it seemed to me personally that there was overreach in restraint and constriction and in treating cannabis as an evil entity with some of the policies that were advanced. Opposite is true with MCD, where there is a great working relationship that we very much appreciate. And now I have a few more questions if I can have the time.
Okay.
Thank you. I believe that it's quite obvious if you talk to cultivators in the community that the impact of grants received have kept people in business. So I can't stress enough the importance of all of us moving forward to get more grant money available. I think it's absolutely essential, even for me. I had asked earlier if Sarah had any indication of how there were new annual grants appearing in the data from the department. And from what, December to January, there were, I think, 4 or 5 new annual applications that were listed. And I'm just wondering how that is happening. And she did reply to my query that, yes, she was asking DCC what was going on. And I'm kind of interested to know if it's just a complete DDC approval process that brought those new annuals into our county, or if there's anything that the county is having to provide and interface with. But clearly, if applicants are able to present their projects in ways that don't require an EIR, some of us would like to know how that's happening. So if that could be happening in terms of a feedback loop, that would be great. I am wondering how the department will select LGAGP grant recipients if indeed there are more applicants than there are funds. How will that selection process be handled? And is it still the case that in terms of denials of applications, there were 244 total denials, or are those still in process, or what is, that's a substantial number, so I'm curious how that washes out. I'm also wondering if the department has a calculation yet on how many cultivators are actually fallowing for 2024. And when it comes to questions that Deputy County Counsel Schwash might be communicating to the DDC on the EIR process, my main and consistent comment is always going to be, how will previously collected reports and data be useful in the site-specific process? It seems like the site-specific process is not at all understood in how the state will be moving forward. And clearly, that's us. That's what we need to contribute. And some has been prepared, maybe some could be prepared on an ongoing basis if we had more clarity. And regarding the discussion between aerial inspections, satellite surveillance inspections, and on-site inspections regarding the times required, I, for one, can say that part of the time of an on-site inspection is the human communication that's going on and the time that those take. And it is good to know who your inspector is and who you may be working with on your various applications and renewals. But it's also important to note that there's a lot of conversation that goes on. That does take time, which has nothing to do with, you know, measuring the area of a canopy. It's just part of human interaction. So that needs to be considered when we're comparing the two processes. Thank you all very much.
Okay, thank you.
I have one other thing I wanted to say in reference to my rumminess from last night. Part of my concern in saying that the the statistical possibility of just Supervisor Haschek being on the board at the end of the year with people not running or people running, retiring, et cetera, is that this year now is going to be really, really critical. Because if that scenario evolved, 4 new people trying to educate them on all that we've already done is going to be a nightmare. So that was my concern on that regard. Thank you very much.
All right. Okay, did you want to address any of those issues, like the prioritization of the LJAGP?
Please, Sarah McBurney, Senior Program Manager with the Mendocino County Cannabis Department. In regards to Corinne's question about the annual DCC licensures that have transitioned, so for December there was a report, total of 4 annual licensures reported. And I do want to note that that is a DCC-driven process. And the department only finds out about those annual licensure statuses through, at this point, applicants coming forth with that information. So we were told in December that 4 applicants had received annuals. That doesn't necessarily mean they transitioned in December, but that means that we got notice of them. And we don't have clear insight as to how that transition is taking place. We have opened up conversation with the DCC and are hoping to get answers. In terms of the prioritization of applications for the LJAGP grant funds, I do want to note that with the total amount of grant funds, which is $4.8 million at $25,000 each, we have enough for about 200 direct grant applications. And I can guarantee you we will receive more applications than we are able to fund. So I think it's very important for our applicants to please follow when we are publishing our timelines for the grant application process. Please follow those. Please get your applications in early. Reach out to the department if you have any questions. Reach out to community folks that have insight and can assist with that process. But it will be a first come, first serve opportunity for those applications. And we do have a certain percentage of funds carved out for our equity verified applicants as well. So our equity verified applicants will have a kind of a assurance, so to speak, of a chunk of funding.
They have prioritization, right?
Somewhat, yeah, to a piece of the funds. It's 25% of the total funds, I believe, is carved out for those equity-specific applicants. Now, if for some reason the equity applicants don't take up that percentage of funding, we can reevaluate as needed. But there is that little bit of a carve out there. Otherwise, it will be first come, first serve.
Okay. Following.
Okay, so total applications for 2024, we had 65.
Okay, very good. All right, Chantal.
Good morning, everybody. Chantal Simon Petrie with Mainspring Consulting. I haven't done public comment for a couple months. It's been lovely. Maybe a month, probably a month exactly. So here we go. I'm going to really try and stay within my time because I have other things I'd like to do today, but I probably will go over, so I'll just ask for pardon. I want to begin with the tone of gratitude and acknowledgement. Thank you to everybody from the county, the department, particularly Sarah. It's been really lovely to work with you. And Supervisor Haschek also for your dedication over the long haul of understanding the issues and continuing to advocate, continue to engage with the stakeholder community. Responding to Supervisor McGorty, welcome to the GGC. Nice to see you again. Your question about what changed, I think we all snickered in the audience because the primary thing that changed was the leadership and the tone of who was in charge of the department, just to call it out directly. It's like who was calling the shots about what needed to be when and how and under what prioritization and with what tone of engagement with the applicant community. It's been a wholesale, you could exponentially change it from a 180. However you would do that, it's dramatically different from what it used to be. And I would say that's the primary change. And underneath that change also then came a willingness to engage directly with the stakeholder community in a transparent, open communication and dialogue process through a change of type of meeting where there's better information shared. The stakeholder community is not just cultivators on the land trying to make it in a farming type of environment, but it's also a very highly educated and technically experienced community that live in the area that have been working in this type of consultation in industry, Hannah, myself included, and many other environmental firms, engineers, and all sorts of planning department, planning staff from other companies. And so there's a wealth of information in the community that wasn't being tapped into and was being shut out of the dialogue. And so by opening up into a more collaborative governance style, transparent, open dialogue, it helped speed up efficiency, better communication, and shifted from a positions-based dialogue to an understanding what were shared underlying values and issues. We were, prior to that, really oppositionally arguing back and forth for years in this confrontational way that was really ineffective. And so we shifted to there's not that much difference between our positions. And once we were able to drop that positioning, get to underlying values, then everything started to flow more smoothly. And the hope is that we continue to do that. There still are some things that I think there's some gatekeeping going on, and I'm going to ask a couple specific questions, Sarah, of some numbers. Some of them you just answered, so I'll hold those questions. That's my comment about what changed, and thanks. Coming into, so some numerics, if I get out, just direct them directly to Sarah, if that's okay. But do I have to do the through the board every single time? There's been a lot of etiquette.
Yeah, do it that way.
Okay, great. Which way? Through you?
Through the board.
Okay,
yeah,
great.
through the chair.
I'll do that. So in the category of issued MCD CCBLs, I would like to know through the recent withdraw outreach, like are you still active? Are you still in the game or not in the game anymore? How many were categorized from non-responsive back into being under review? Like, what is that positive number? Like, hey, we haven't been in touch with you for years. Maybe you are still intending to continue to pursue a license. What did that turn into? And I, of course, can wait until I sit down and hear a response. I'm going to speak now on my most favorite topic of Exhibit A again, and the whole sensitive species, it's a joke, right? Hannah? Snickers behind me. Sensitive species habitat review. So in my mind, there is our regulation that we have, our local ordinance, and then part of the ordinance that says that certain issues need to be referred to CDFW for their further review because of how the whole ordinance unfolding happened in the original drafting and when DFW comments were, or how impacts to sensitive species review was conducted. This goes back over the 5 years of 2017 or more to now. And we developed a referral process and a tool for that, which was the Exhibit A screening tool. I've offered public comment on the screaming. I've screamed about the screening tool for multiple years in an appropriate way here, and that it is, again, erroneous, has incorrect guidance. It's being administered by non-science educated staff at the county, and it results in over-referral to DFW. We're still dealing with a backlog with DFW, and so I'm super grateful to hear about the conversations with Angela Liebenberg and that how they're beginning to dedicate certain dates of their regular processing of all of their permits and review in order to handle Mendocino County specific referrals. But I didn't hear a specific response to like what's happening with the screening tool. We still haven't heard back, and this is now the 4th month in a row that I'm asking to say, where is the screening tool? The red lines that Hannah and I developed and gave to the county months ago, a year ago? I don't even know. It's beyond 6 months. Because if we're talking about efficiency of county resources and their usage, in particular 4-leaf planning contract, and how many dollars remain in that contract, how many permits can be processed, whether those permits can be processed in a timely way, if we continue to over-refer with this kind of fold in the referral process happening with things overlapping at DFW, why is there not being timely attention given to the primary document that the county uses to refer things to DFW or not? Because if we're able to resolve some of those internally, things don't then have to get slowed down with 4-leaf. Then it doesn't tick up the 4-leaf hours that they're billing, nor with DFW that we're billing. So it seems like we're all aware that there's a tool, that it's incorrectly being used, it has erroneous information on it, and it's just resulting in greater inefficiency and greater cost to the county. I think we've worked well together to resolve many of these type of wrinkles, but this is one that I'm just curious, and I'll step down for my response on it, if that's okay. I'd like to just finish what my questions are, unless you'd like to go. I see you rising up, Mr. Hashak, so
Well,
go ahead.
No, I'm just trying to
Okay.
move it along.
Okay, I will. So the reason I bring it up in this particular way is we still don't know, and I think you've provided it, Ms. McBurney, in past, through the chair. Ms. McBurney has provided it in past comments, is the quantity of referrals per month. Now we have clear numbers on how long the delay has been from DFW, but I think it's informative. I would like to know when were referrals, how many occurred per month over the time period that we've been using the Exhibit A screening tool. And if we look at the MCD CCBL applications, the review, which is on page 2 of their report, that total of number of renewals and applications assigned to contract planners and number assigned to MCD planners, it totals to over 500. So there's still 500 renewal or first-time applications under review, either with Four Leaf or with the county, that are still not yet gone through the Exhibit A tool, who could be processed in a more efficient manner if we handle that tool. I'll move off of that. That's my long time. My other comments, coming into, with respect to, as my colleagues prior to me transition from topic to topic, with respect to the inspection cost, I echo what previous comments were regarding the current matched fee cost for an inspection, whether it is digital or virtual versus in person. And I ask for the county staff to shift their perspective to that of the applicant and the cultivator, that from their perspective of the cultivator, those that you're serving, what is the benefit that they receive in paying for a virtual inspection versus a in-person? Different people may say different things, but I would say strongly, any rapport building that can happen between the regulateds and the regulators, such as occurs during an in-person inspection, where so much is soothed and resolved, so much animosity is settled down. There's still historic mistreatment and sort of PTSD about how this regulated whole game has been going. And so, to me, it is unfair to charge the same cost for a virtual versus an in-person. Coming into, with respect to the environmental review process, the EIR, I guess I'm just always kind of bewildered with the fact that there's not specificity in the responses that we're receiving on what is the status of the EIR between the county and county council and the DCC. And again, this is something that the stakeholder community has asked for more information, not specifics. There's always a hope for specifics, but we've received really vague gatekeeping type of responses that leads me to be suspicious. Is any progress being made? And I'm sure that there is some. I'm trying to point out that the tone of communication back to the stakeholder community is that it sounds like the county doesn't know what they're doing with the EIR, but they don't have enough information in order to say anything out to the public. And so if there is more specific information, that it please be shared, and that whole process also be opened up, so no longer be with lack of transparency and a lack of stakeholder involvement at this stage, not just later when there's official public comment, but in the earlier stages. I think I have one more comment. Coming into the Gantt chart, this gets into technical comments for the MCD staff. On the Gantt chart, I would recommend that there be a legend that's added onto this so it's easier to read and to interpret, and they would clarify the categorization by color, which is not clear. I make a lot of charts, and I know there's a lot of fun in choosing which color you choose for which bar, but it's very important to ensure that what the chart conveys is communicated, and we're missing something in this chart to tell us what is shown by what. There's a lot of assumptions, and thank you, Supervisor Hashak, for asking your questions that clarified it. Also regarding Four Leaf, my experience so far with Four Leaf, I would say about 50% of the time when they are asking for a document and I'm sending them a document, they're unable to see if there is an attachment. We're stuck in 4 or 5 rounds. They say, we need your current site plan. We send them the site plan. They say, we don't see the attachment. We try it again. We tried a third time. We're using Google Docs. We're doing all these different ways. So there is, again, a If Four Leaf is charging the county for each one of those efforts to look at that document to receive it, there is an escalation of costs that it seems like there's a better mechanism that could be used to make things more efficient and less costly for the county. And I'll close with, on the subject of grants and funding available for cultivators, I work in the environmental and salmonid habitat restoration grant program development, writing with CDFW and other state agencies, and that's been a required shift of my consulting business as the need for compliance has ebbed, as so many people have stepped out of the program or progressed successfully to where they don't need the services anymore. There are additional grants available right now. This is an information piece that I'm sharing through the supervisors to please ask the MCD if they're willing to receive the information from me, and then for that information to be distributed to the cannabis cultivation community via CannaNotes. If you are a licensed or seeking to obtain a license, in addition to the Cannabis Restoration Grant Program through CDFW, there are also other grants available. If you also are growing food for sale plus cannabis, you used to not be allowed to qualify for those type of grants if you had cannabis cultivation. There are other grants available for mixed use type of agriculture. And there are other grants available just to do many of the things that a parcel has to do in order to comply with their sensitive species and habitat review and reduction of those impacts that I think would be really good to get out to the cannabis community. They're coming through the Mendocino County Resource Conservation District, or they can be direct to the cultivator. The cultivator themselves can just apply directly for this funding and receive it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay. Sarah? And, you know, I just wanted to remind everyone, we do have to do the legislative platform today too. So I'm trying to move it along at this point. Sarah, do you have any comments about those issues?
Yes, Sarah McBurney, Senior Program Manager. So out of the 203 initial outreach sent by the department as of today, we have had 108 responses. 95 of those wish to remain in program. 13 of those have withdrawn. For the SSHR screening tool, we just received response from CDFW on January 5th, 2024. And so the department has been internally reviewing that with county council. And if it's the wish of the General Government Committee, we could bring that back here for review as well, or engage with stakeholders directly for input prior to resubmitting that to CDFW for review. And yes, if there are any grant opportunities that are found in the public and anyone wants to share those with MCD, we would be happy to review them.
Okay, very good. Any other comments from the public? Any online?
None online.
Okay, very good. Back to the board then. Good.
I would like to visit sometime with Sarah and discuss the screening tool for the sensitive species habitat and how that works, because I'm curious. It seems like that's been a real holdup for a lot of permitting and licensing, and I would like to know more about that. So I'll make an appointment sometime to talk to you. Other than that, thanks everybody.
Yeah.
For input, and thanks, John, for your leadership. Of course, you have most of the cannabis community in your district. It's a very important part of Mendocino County's production, and I know you're a good advocate for the people who vote for you, so thank you.
Okay, well, I'm glad you're back on this committee. You know, we're working together again on it. Yeah, and Sarah, if you could bring the screening tool maybe next month, we could look at it as a committee too. Okay? Is there anything else we need to know?
I don't believe at this time.
Okay, so thank you very much, and we should have news about the LEAP any day now. And with that, I think do we need a motion to approve the report?
Through the chair, if I may.
Sure.
The recommended action is to refer the update to the Board of Supervisors.
I would move that.
I'll second. Okay. Call for the vote.
Chair Hashak,
Yes.
Supervisor McCourty.
Yes.
The motion carries unanimously.
Okay. So we should probably take a break about till 1:15. Then we'll come back and do the legislative platform. How's that work?
Sounds good.
Okay?
Did not know or understand or even comprehend. I was going to have to really go to the well and become accountable and adjust to a lot of things differently.
Lo que queríamos era que naciera, ya quiero tener, entonces ahorita lo que tenemos es aprovecharla, quererla y cuidarla lo más que se pueda.
Creo que a todos nos preocupa la primera vez que nos dicen que vamos a ser padres.
When we started the program, my daughter was about 3 months, and my daughter's 22 months now. Something I love about my child, that she's healthy, she's happy, she knows that she's cared for and loved. Those are some of the things that I wanted to make sure that she had, and she has them.
I'm happy today with my daughter. She's the greatest thing in my life, and I'm glad to wake up and see her, and everything I do it for her.
Sí, bueno, yo también vengo de una familia separada. Creo que por eso también me motiva a estar más presente con él, de quizás también estar de la forma quizás que yo no la tuve para Máximo, y también comprender que el padre no solo es el que pone los límites y las reglas, sino que también está ahí para hablar, acompañar, regalonear, jugar, cosas lindas también, no solo ser el guía para el niño, sino que también un compañero de vida.
I was more of a elated and thankful because for 3 months I was in baby land, and when you're in baby world, you're just kind of flying by the seat of your pants and hoping you know that you're just supportive in the ways that you can be supportive.
Pero pues aquí pues ya los enseñan un poquito más cosas que uno no sabía, como cuidarla, cómo desarrollarla, cómo educarla, y pues es algo bien porque pues cosas que yo no sabía, pues ya usted nos las dijo y todo como consejos, y pues muchas cosas que se aprendieron.
Bueno, creo que por mi parte esperaba algo totalmente diferente, como un programa más frío, por decir algo, no tan cercano a la familia, sino más bien un programa de Estado programado para la ayuda solamente. Y a través del programa nos hemos dado cuenta que también pasa a ser una familia con nosotros, porque nos apoya en los momentos difíciles o cuando nos hemos visto en dificultades. Siempre nos hemos podido apoyar en Gaby a través de su programa. Encuentro que ha sido fundamental el apoyo.
You know, my experience has been nothing but positive. Annette has been wonderful. She's on time. She lets me know if there's going to be any changes in the schedule.
Not only did we get the assistance with this program, but we also made a really good friend. I'm happy to call Gabby our friend.
I still feel the challenge of being a parent now in today's world is immense. I think that you need support.
Es un gran apoyo para nuevos padres, y más aún si están en nuestra situación, que somos extranjeros, que nuestra familia y amigos, como dice Carla, están en otro país, lejos. Entonces sí, viene muy bien el programa para apoyarse tanto emocional y como anímicamente, y bueno, en varios aspectos del programa que nos ayuda a seguir adelante con esta nueva aventura.
Don't be afraid to take that step. Like, don't be afraid to get help, because you might think that you know what you're doing, but it's always okay to have extra support, and don't do it alone.
Give it a try. You got nothing to lose. It's free. I'm grateful that I took advantage, because it's something that has put me in touch with my child, or closer to my child and her development.
Are you prepared? We're the Office of Emergency Services, and we're committed to providing the most up-to-date and accurate information so that you and your family can stay safe during an emergency. Visit MendoReady.org. It's our one-stop shop for emergency information. You can sign up for emergency alerts, find your pre-established evacuation zone on our current emergencies map, and find hazard and preparedness information.
Imagine you're faced with a disaster such as a wildfire and you're ordered to evacuate. I'll bet you wish you had more time in that moment. Now's your chance to buy yourself that time. Sign up for Nixle and Mendo Alerts on our website, mendoready.org. Do it today.
If you want your family to be as resilient as possible, it's important to take some time today and visit mendoready.org, where you can look up your pre-established evacuation zones on our current emergencies map. You can also find important tools to help maintain your situational awareness, such as the Alert California wildfire cameras and the Caltrans road conditions cameras. We hope you'll take some time today to prepare so that your family can be Mendo ready. Thank you.
Personally, I think everybody could benefit from the home visiting programs.
I think that as a parent now, I'm grateful for support more than I was before.
I filled out that form not knowing what I was doing. I am very, very grateful that I did it because it's really helping me a lot.
Bueno, creo que por mi parte esperaba algo totalmente diferente, como un programa más frío, por decir algo, no tan cercano a la familia. Y a través del programa nos hemos dado cuenta que también pasa a ser una familia con nosotros porque nos apoya en los momentos difíciles o cuando nos hemos visto en dificultades.
Well, I was a new mom and I had no experience taking care of a newborn.
There isn't like a book on how to raise a kid.
We come from like a lot of family history of, you know, drugs, violence, alcoholism, so we didn't want our daughter to experience any of that.
The thought that a parent was supposed to be loving, nurturing, supposed to be there for their kid, you know, provide food, shelter, joy, and going in, becoming a parent for her, I had no clue how to provide that.
Cómo pensar educarla, ajá. Cómo educar a un hijo y porque pues nosotros nunca es la primera vez que íbamos a ser padres.
What I think parents should know about home visiting is that you can learn a lot of new things and tips and tricks, how to take care of the baby and what to do, and if you're, stuck in a routine and everything being monotonous, like they give you new resources and new tools how to handle parenthood.
It was nice to have them kind of guiding me. Even though I was not a first-time mom, I felt like a first-time mom.
It totally blew my mind over time. So much information that I had no idea about. She was straightforward when, teaching me this stuff and answered any of my questions. Just a really positive experience.
What I think that parents could benefit with the program is just having someone here for you, especially for first-time parents. It can be very isolating and it can be very lonely, and having the home visitor changes that, and it feels very good.
For me, having a home visitor is like having a second mom there.
A lot has changed. I'm definitely more knowledgeable taking care of her, and I know that anytime I need advice or help from somebody, I can just call her.
It's just that little positive nudge to, hey, I'm noticing something, let's find a way how to change it. And she's like, you know what, Amanda, let's pick you up, dust you off, and let's go over to, see about either getting your driver's license or seeing about, going to college, see if we can start something for you.
It's totally worth it. Like, even if you're on the fence at first, you don't feel like having a stranger coming in your house and teaching you about your little one, do it anyway. You get the help that you need. You get professional advice on things you may not know about your child. And the fact that the program has no fees or anything, it's all totally free, is fantastic.
Yo creo que si conozco a alguien que está próxima a ser mamá.
Item 2B, which is discussion and possible action, including direction regarding the development of the Mendocino County's 2024 legislative platform. And, I'd just like to say that the legislative platform draft is attached to the agenda item. And I really want to appreciate Kelly Hansen for her work on this. It's been a very collaborative, professional approach to dealing with it. And so you'll see in this legislative platform that we've done a few things differently. If you look at the first part in the mission statement, we've included the strategic plan for the county. And so that's Supervisor McGordy and I worked very hard on that plan, and I think it's appropriate that that is included there to show what we're really trying to do with our legislative platform. And then if you go to page 6 of the legislative platform, we also included guiding principles. And this includes our strategic plan, but also 6 other guiding principles that I hope that we can agree on. And so if you turn to page 8, you'll see, or I guess page 8, we put in this section about governmental transparency and public access. We had quite a few issues this year about public records request, and also video technologies such as Zoom and trying to make it more accessible for people, reduce vehicle miles traveled. You know, we have such a big county, and if people can access, especially the advisory bodies, that that they can do it by Zoom, then we should be promoting that. That would help people access, you know, these boards and commissions from all over the county. So I think both of those are key issues that we've been dealing with this past year. And then there's also a couple amendments that are, one's about insurance access to insurance, which has become a critical issue in our county. And another is that issue we talked about briefly yesterday in the board meeting about the AT&T situation with the copper wires. And so it's a request for reliable and affordable telecommunications. And we also, in Health and Human Services, we included advocate for single-payer health care. I think there's some other changes that we're still getting some input on. We got some input from MCA just recently. We weren't able to input that because the draft had already been published. And we also got some input from the Grassroots Institute. So as we get this input, we'll try to see what we can incorporate today. And it's a working document. It will go to the board at some point. I just had some communication with Sheriff Kendall. He wants to add some things. And so we'll have to figure out that process as we go along. With that, again, I want to thank Kelly Hansen for your work on this, and really appreciate your approach to dealing with all these issues. So Kelly, if you want to take it away.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Chair. Kelly Hansen, Executive Office. Just to give a quick overview, each year, county departments and advisory bodies review and recommend state and federal legislation to improve and enhance county financing, operation and efficiency, and service delivery. The county legislative platform includes overarching guiding principles, prioritizes state and federal issues intended for legislative action, and lays out ongoing general state and federal issues that the county will monitor for potential action should opportunities arrive. The Board of Supervisors adopts these legislative positions as a platform that guides county advocacy and elected state and federal representatives. Since 2016, the development of the legislative platform has been referred to the Board of Supervisors General Government Standing Committee, and the committee requests through the Executive Office departmental assistance to identify the critical programs or funding streams, state or federal, the county should advocate to preserve, protect, or enhance or other legislation priorities of importance to Mendocino County. This input was sought from departments in December of 2023 and incorporated in the draft 2024 legislative platform presented today for your review and comment.
All right, so maybe we should start with each section and just go through and note any changes, edits. Okay, we can discuss. So why don't we start with the governmental transparency and public access, which I just spoke about. Are there any issues with that? Okay. Yeah.
The issue for us, I think that's really important, is that we continue to advocate for allowing some of our Brown Act compliant committees and special districts and things to be able to Zoom, have access via Zoom on a regular basis, because that, as we stated earlier, is a big issue when you think about how scattered everybody is in our county, and I think of LAFCO as an example where we have people from Point Arena and Willits and Fort Bragg. You know, it's great to be able to have the option of not having to be here in person and thinking of our carbon footprint and reducing it. I guess the way the law reads now, you're allowed 2 meetings a year, and you have to post where they're going to be, and it's complicated. So making a little more flexibility for remote Zoom participation, I think, is something that in our county makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, not just the county. Tomorrow we have a great Redwood Trail meeting, and it's here, but it has people from Humboldt, from Marin County, Sonoma. So these kind of boards are just, when people have to drive to these meetings, it's just ridiculous in this day and age. Anyway, I think Ms. Hanson one of those, we wrote a letter of support for AB 817, I believe, and that would do the advisory boards, right? But certainly what you're saying is more relevant, and we need to try to get as much as we can in this realm of Zoom technologies.
So for instance, Supervisor Jurdy and I are going to the North Coast Resource Partnership meeting, and that's going to be in Siskiyou County. So that means close to 5 hours to get there driving, and then the meeting, and then staying overnight and coming home. So those are examples of where you have a good option for video conferencing. It would really make it probably better attendance when you get into these very distant locations.
Okay. Going down to county roads and infrastructure. I did get a comment that says, nothing here about transportation as a key factor in economy and well-being. That was from Peter McNamee. Could we maybe include a sentence about that in the issue? Okay. Moving on to climate resilience and renewable energy. In Peter McNamee's, he says that we should replace electric vehicles with zero emission vehicles.
If I may, so I agree with that. I think we should be looking at hydrogen fuel as another possibility for Mendocino County, because we have an opportunity to address forest management, being able to thin some of our overstocked forests and have a product. From what I know about trucking, electric trucks aren't going to work great because they go about 75 miles and need a recharge. So hydrogen fuel could be an option, and we already, in kind of the economic development sector, talking about the hydrogen highway that would run from Stockton to the Oregon border, basically having the availability of hydrogen fuel as a way of being able to move things by truck. And we are probably going to have a pilot project here with Mendocino Redwood Products before too long. They're looking at just taking the waste, their sawdust, which right now they have to truck around all over the place to either turn into landscape mulch or end up in a landfill in the extreme cases. So that could be converted into electricity and also into hydrogen fuel and biochar. So the whole process of pyrolysis allows this to happen, and it's something I think that we should mention of being supportive of developing that technology. And with state and federal support.
Okay. Let's see. Ms. Hanson, do you have the ability to manipulate the document? Okay.
You could just, we can just put a placeholder on there that just says hydrogen fuel or biofuels.
Or zero emission vehicles? Would that encompass everyone? Everything?
Yes.
Okay.
And make a mention specifically of alternate biofuels.
Now, with that feedback, let's see, as far as process goes, you know, I can work with Ms. Hanson and come back with those changes, or we can see where we are at the end of this session, and you know, if you trust that we can make those changes on our own, or we can send you a copy, or anyway.
Yeah, that's fine.
Instead of trying to do it all right here.
I agree with you. I think we just make a placeholder, and then, you know, there's, Ms. Hanson can talk with Anna Mackin, who's working with us on the hydrogen highway, and get some feedback from her. And then I'd be happy to check it later.
Okay. All right, disaster prevention, recovery, resiliency, and mitigation.
You know, it appears that this is working really well for us in terms of our own Office of Emergency Services, which has now been clearly defined, and it's been integrated into the grant and contracts unit. It seems like it's functioning well, and what we have listed here is, you know, seems pretty complete. And is this where you have insurance? Question about insurance?
Yeah, that's what I was looking for. Where do we have insurance in this? We were going to add that amendment.
If I may, through the chair, yes, the amendment on homeowners insurance would be added here. And there is language here on the advocate and support state protection for homeowners insurance availability and affordability. That is .123.
So in addition to that, in terms of federal action, there's a proposal being developed by Adam Schiff to backstop the insurance of last resort, you know, for our state fair program. So we might include support for that.
Okay, and have you seen the amendment that deals with the insurance? It says, support state efforts to strengthen and stabilize California's marketplace for homeowners and commercial property insurance and expand consumer coverage choices, particularly in underserved areas. All right with that?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. Okay. Kelly, are you ready to move on? Oh. COVID-19 response and recovery. We deleted a lot of these because fortunately we're post-pandemic at this point, but there's still a few issues that are still relevant to the county. Okay, natural resources.
Before you leave that, do we have anything in here about vaccination or support for? Is that something that we're leaving to the private sector for healthcare?
Yeah, we don't have anything in there about vaccinations, but
if I may, through the chair, under the federal section, it does say support ongoing federal coronavirus aid to local government to support the COVID-19 response, including but not limited to testing, vaccines, isolation, quarantine, housing, and
Okay.
economic recovery.
Guess that covers it.
Okay.
All right.
Natural resources. No changes there. Okay, economic and community development. So this is a combined area. We thought community development also fit in with economic development. So we've added in, along with a lot of great things with economic development, we added in some things about libraries and the museum towards the end. Also, we added advocate for secured, long-term, ongoing funding, maintenance, and planning of the Great Redwood Trail. Okay.
I'm wondering, after some discussions that I've had with Supervisor Williams, if we should also talk about streamlining installation of cell towers, because if we're continuing to lose our copper-based communication system with AT&T sort of wanting to pull out of it, the process of getting a cell tower up, I guess, takes years. And I don't know if that is because of state regulations or if it's our local land use planning or what, but that's something I think that we recognize we won't be able to have a fiber connection to every home in Mendocino County, but we probably could have Wi-Fi and we could have improved cell service to make it so that communications are, you know, basically guaranteed anywhere in the county. You'd be able to somehow hook up to someone.
Where do we have that about telecommunications? Support that statement.
If I may, it is in the amendment, that's the second amendment about access and reliability to telecommunications.
Yeah, support and advocate for sustained access to reliable and affordable telecommunications services for the county's diverse community.
Okay.
Would that cover it?
I think so. It's broad enough that it would allow us to be able to address the issue of new cell towers, which might also include Wi-Fi communications. Any other? Tony, any thoughts on that? No. Okay.
All right. Moving on to cannabis. Okay, so let's see, we received a memo from MCA, and see, do we have that memo? Or okay, and does everyone on the committee have it? Everyone's seen that? Okay, so let's see. Have you seen that, Supervisor McGordy?
No, I have not.
Okay. So.
Okay, thank you. Okay, very good.
Do I have that? Yeah. Okay, so I think that there were some editorial edits, and then a couple deletions. And the first deletion is advocate that the DCC establish a process for state cultivation license holders to fallow all or a portion of the allowed mature plant canopy. And my understanding is that that is happening through a bill from Senator McGuire. Okay. And then the other is advocate for the removal of the 4-acre cap on cannabis cooperative associations to allow economy of scale for small farmers. And that is one I initially put in a few years ago. But I think that there's some workarounds on that, and it's felt like it's not needed at this point in time. So I'm willing to back off on that one. So, okay. And then there is a addition for the federal action of advocate for commercial cannabis production to be legally designated and regulated as commercial agricultural activity regulated by the United States Department of Agriculture. Other than that, there's those few edits, and any problem with any of those?
No, I think this is fine. RCRC has a couple of bills that they're sponsoring regarding illegal cannabis that we may want to take a look at. I just got the information from Sarah, so I don't know how we work that into the timeline for us to get this done, but there's a bill, AB 491, for streamlined code enforcement, and SB 820, which is civil forfeiture for illegal cannabis, which again gives the sheriff more tools for controlling illegal grows.
Okay, we do have the last one, advocate for state and federal legislation and funding to combat illegal trespass cultivation of cannabis on public and private lands. Support adequate funding to address illegal water diversion, water pollution, erosion, poisoning of wildlife, and other environmental damage associated with trespass cannabis growing operations. So you feel like that
should cover it.
You think that covers it?
Yeah, and then this would be specifically a couple of bills that are coming forward that work in that arena.
Okay. Okay, if you feel like we're covered with that, you're good with those proposed changes?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay, moving on to public safety. Okay, and I reached out to Sheriff Kendall. He said that he might have some ideas, but that I know that Ms. Hanson has already reached out to the sheriff a couple times. And so what we could do is I could meet with the sheriff, get his input, and then just bring it directly to the board at that point. Or do you have any ideas on if he's got some things that we need to include? Because yesterday in our board meeting, he had some statements about what was going on in Sacramento and so.
I think that would be a good idea to interview him again. One of the things that also I think would be, I don't know if this applies or not, but I'll just say that trying to offset carbon emissions from patrol vehicles is something that we support, and if there's funding available for that, we would support that.
Do we have that in here? You know, a lot of it has to do from
More policing us.
Chief Locatelli and SB 823 and the Department of Juvenile Justice.
Yeah, I know that we've written letters in support of that, and probably one of the most important things is trying to get additional funds for the behavioral health wing of the new jail.
Yeah, we included that in.
That's great.
Okay. And the SB 823 is the juvenile justice and having to send, you know, those people who are in the DJJ over to other counties for the service they need. Okay. Okay. Health and Human Services. This is where we included community healthcare workers, which I think is very important. Single payer healthcare system. Okay. workforce development. Any changes there? Right. Moving on to behavioral health. Here we also have the advocate for state and federal funds to offset cost of the behavioral health wing of the new jail. Okay.
Do we mention care court in this?
I don't think so. Ms. Hanson, do we have anything about care court?
Not specifically by name, no.
Yeah, I think we need to continue to sort of sharpen the legislation, because it's a little bit overly broad, and I have a lot of concerns just for us being able to run the program. If we have to start, in essentially committing people who are not well. I'm not sure we have the capacity either for our county personnel or for facilities to bring people to if they're in a psychotic state.
So how would we state that?
I would want some help from Dr. Miller on that, because I know that she has concerns. I think that she would be the one to just get a short paragraph or so about what the issues are with care court for us locally to be able to implement it, since that's the direction we seem to be heading.
Monitor implementation of care court.
Yeah.
And ensure that county is fully funded for.
Yeah, we just have adequate resources to implement care court. I think that's basically what we're trying to say, is that we want to be sure we have adequate resources to implement it. And we heard yesterday about some people who are homeless who appear to be a clear and present danger to our population. So we want to be sure that they're helped.
So ensure adequate compensation for any implementation of care court.
Or just say have adequate resources.
Okay. Have that, Kelly. Great. Moving on to homelessness. There's no changes there. All right. Do we have any comments? Board or from staff? Okay, any public comment?
Hello, Stephen Amato from President of the MCA. Just real quick, just want to thank you for implementing our recommendations and changes. It's actually multi-organization input was put into that from our Origins Council partner that handles our state and federal policy. And then I'd like to put on my private citizen's hat here, that I'm speaking on behalf of myself as a real property owner, that it is refreshing to hear that it's a priority, this insurance issue. I know it goes far beyond our county, state, and even it's nationwide from people that I know in places like Florida, that I would like to, if there's any sort of meetings or anything that's going to be done to kind of get some public input on some solutions that we can come up with here in our county, because besides just fire danger, we have a lot of areas I know have property that has to pay additional flood insurance and all sorts of stuff like that. And there are certain properties and deals I almost had to walk away from for not being able to obtain lending because of not being able to obtain insurance, which I think contributes to our housing crisis here in this county. It's very hard to get renters insurance. People sometimes forget about even those people that are renters that could lose everything they have because they can't insure their own real property. So Like I said, it's very refreshing to hear that it is a priority, and I think it really needs to be because it stems into so many different economical areas of our county that I'm welcome to participate in any sort of discussions about that and try to come up with some real, out of the box creative solutions that may not have been thought of before. And just thank you very much in all your work on all of this and the rest of the legislative platform. Really, hopefully we can pursue some of those topics and get some real work done. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, I went to the Willett City Council and, talked to them about the legislative platform, and instantly a hand rose that said, hey, we need to talk about insurance and get that on the legislative platform. And certainly it's, not just fire, but flood, all these issues. And it's becoming more and more unaffordable or inaccessible to a lot of people.
Good morning, Hannah Nelson. I concur completely about the insurance issue, not only for property insurance and renter's insurance, but also the health insurance issue. I know that and I'm speaking now as an individual, even though I'm an advisor to MCA, and I'm also an advisor to Origins Council, which MCA is the regional partner of Origins Council, which is the state and federal advocacy regarding legacy cannabis. I'm speaking as an individual here, and the insurance issue, medical insurance in particular, I mean, for sure, property insurance, I feel fortunate that I still have property insurance, but I know many people have lost property insurance, so it's an imperative issue at the state level. And I know that it may not seem like we can do a lot here, but I do believe that every local jurisdictions whose voices are heard at the state level contribute to advancing it as a priority. And I know that the governor and the administration has indicated that it believes it's a priority, but I think that the continued pressure and voices from the ground up is so important, and I appreciate your inclusion of those issues in the legislative platform. As well, regarding the public access, and particularly access to meetings, as you all know, I travel, it takes me about 2 hours, sometimes less, depending on weather and construction, to get here to be in person. And today, the only reason why I came in person was because I have other business that I can do with the county today. But having the ability to do Zoom is so important and helpful for many, many reasons. I do believe it increases access to your citizenry, and it's imperative that that continue. With respect to the PRAs, I guess the devil will be in the details, and we've seen local ordinances trying to balance the need of the county to not have such an enormous financial and staff burden with the necessary rights under California Constitution to public records access. And it's a tricky situation, but I think that the devil will be in the details about what is proposed, but I'm all for the state kicking down funds to help local jurisdictions, let's put it that way. The care court is a very tricky one for me personally. I was a social worker before I was an attorney for many years, and I've got several relatives who are psychotherapists and social workers, and very much more plugged into those issues than one might think, considering what you know me for. And I believe that there is again, the devil is in the details. I was personally against the specific legislation regarding the care courts because I was concerned about the details, and I have a history of civil rights and individual protection, litigation, and advocacy, and I am very concerned about how care courts might become, while trying to solve one problem, which is an important one to solve, of taking the burden off of law enforcement, helping to protect the public, trying to help individuals, it could create another problem unintentionally. And so I certainly appreciate at the local level, keeping our eye on the details and the radar and making sure that the implementation is not only funded, so it's not an unfunded mandate, but that the clear delineations so that people's privacy rights, their individual personal right to autonomy are not unnecessarily invaded, and at the same time balancing those other interests. I do want to comment, and again, we can talk about it more specifically when those particular bills come up, both with respect to RCRC's bills. I look forward to having that conversation when perhaps the issue is before the full board or this committee first, and then the full board to write a letter of support or against or neutral. But I do think that the issue of civil forfeiture is much like the issue of the care courts. I litigated many civil forfeiture cases, and one of the absurd, ludicrous results is that the burden of proof is flipped in those cases. And many times, people who rightfully have an ability to make a claim don't, either because of the short time frames or because they don't have the resources to pursue them and the burden of proof that it requires. And it's very easy to allege something is subject to forfeiture and very difficult to argue against it. So I'm generally against and suspicious of civil forfeiture except post-conviction. And that's, I think, an important thing to bear in mind, but we can discuss that as certain legislation is actually proposed, and I really appreciate all of your effort and time, and I just want to make sure that in addition to the deletions, that whatever additions were recommended in the MCA memo, which unfortunately did not have MCA on it, but I think you all know that it was from MCA, regarding the cannabis issues were appropriately incorporated and will be adopted. Thank you.
You're not on, John.
Any other public comment?
Seeing none online.
Okay. Okay, back to the board then. Right. Are you all right with this?
I'm right with this, and I agree with Ms. Nelson. There's a lot of concerns about once you get into the system in a care court, what happens to you. If you're institutionalized, you are in chemical jail. There's no communications from the local medical community. If you have a doctor, you cannot be reached. And with the privacy laws, your family can't find out what's happening to you if the person inside is incapacitated or doesn't want to communicate. There's you know, who knows if you're making progress or not. So we kind of worry about somebody being committed and then staying there a long time, and we're back to one flew over the cuckoo's nest again, which is something that we want to avoid. On the other hand, having lived in our community and driving to work, seeing someone just standing on the side of the road ranting at nobody, you know, my heart sinks when I see that. You have to do something. So, thank you.
Okay, so with the legislative platform, I think Ms. Hanson has the recommendations that we've agreed to. Right, edits, are you feeling all right with those? Okay, the only thing that's outstanding is what Sheriff Kendall might have.
And Dr. Miller on care courts.
Okay,
We could.
we're waiting for more. You think we need more language on that?
I would check in
Okay.
with her and just say that,
Okay.
you know, ask her if she has concerns or something that we could put into our legislative platform, because she's the one that's going to have to deal with it, and in my understanding, it's pretty complex.
Yeah. Okay. And then I guess for the big picture is this will come back to if we're all right with what we're adopting now, with those, and we assume that those changes are all right, then it will come to the board at Mr. Tunnicliff, do you have any idea about when this might go to the board?
We'll be certainly working with staff and the chair to see when that can be scheduled. I'm not aware that we've got a placeholder at this time, but my perspective is.
Okay. All right.
Do you need a motion for us to adopt the proposed changes in our legislative platform?
Yes.
Okay, so I move that we adopt the proposed changes in our legislative platform.
I'll second it. Let's see. Mr. Ross?
Yes, through the chair, James Ross, Interim County Council. Is it the board's intention to forward this, or the commission's intention to forward this to the board at this time for consideration as amended? Or are you anticipating bringing it back to this committee for further amendments? Just to clarify.
Well, I think that we're going to make the changes that we've talked about, and then there might be a few more changes, but those don't need to come back to the General Government Committee. They can go straight to the board.
Certainly those amendments could be made at the time that the board considers the legislative platform. So, appropriately you could forward this to the board as amended for its consideration, and the board could take up other suggested amendments at that time.
Okay, so whatever other amendments are separate from what we're adopting right now, and those can be
those can be considered at the board.
Submitted to the board.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. We're good with that?
We're good with that. I'll amend my motion to include the possibility of amending by the board with any additional changes to our legislative platform.
Yeah, that's part of the process.
Okay, so we don't even
Okay.
have to add that into my.
I think that's
Okay.
okay. So I'll call the question.
Supervisor McCourty?
Yes.
Chair Hashak?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Hanson. Really appreciate it. All right. With that, let's move on to item 3A, approval of minutes of the December 18th, 2023 regular meeting. You weren't here for that, but can you make the motion?
Well, I'll ask County Council, can I make the motion and then abstain?
If you abstain, through the chair, if you abstain, there would not be a vote to approve the minutes. Pursuant to the Brown Act, you can approve the minutes as a procedural matter, even if you did not attend that meeting.
Okay. So I would like to approve the minutes. I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second. Any public comment? Seeing none? Okay. Call the question.
Chair Hashak?
Yes.
Supervisor McCourty?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimous.
Okay, item 3B, public expression. Anyone from the public on items of interest?
I'm back. Hello, it's Hannah Nelson. Just very briefly, since it wasn't addressed during a prior agenda item, and it was, in fact, mentioned at yesterday's board meeting, there were outstanding items regarding 10A17 amendments that were referred back to this committee, and I'm just wondering if we can get a commitment to have those on the calendar for the next meeting, and perhaps it would help if in the meantime there's a list published of what topics within the additional amendments that might be considered, so that we're narrowing our focus.
Okay, I'll talk with staff.
Thank you.
Figure out a plan.
Thank you very much.
And what, through the chair, when you say the next meeting, do you mean of this?
Of government committee,
Yes,
yeah.
okay.
I believe that the referral was to the government committee, and certainly informally with staff as well, of course. That's always helpful in the meantime, and not to wait until the next meeting, which is at the end of February. So if there are any ways to prompt the discussion with the department and encouraging the department to talk to stakeholders in the meantime, so we come really focused and prepared and not drag it on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. And we do have a referral for the next board meeting to deal with vegetation management ordinance abatement. So we'll have to just balance everything out and see where we go with it. All right. Are there any announcements?
No announcements.
Through the chair, if I may, we do have one public comment online.
Oh, okay. Public
Paul
comment.
Hansberry.
Paul Hansberry. Public expression. Paul.
Good morning, Chair Hashak and members. I'm sorry I couldn't attend most of yesterday or today's. I had some medical issues, but a couple of things I wanted to bring up regarding today's meeting where I could tune in for minutes at a time. The insurance issue that you were talking about, I think that it's even further exacerbated by equity applicants in that there's $1 million worth of liability insurance for auto and for homeowners and for the businesses, and getting insurance on that level is very, very difficult and another burden for the already emburdened equity applicants. So that might be something that we might want to look at as well. On another point, I understand that Supervisor McCourty said that he has constituents that are very strongly opposed to the elimination of prohibition, and that's great. I understand. However, there's a number of other constituents that would really love the accommodation reinstated because of, just in the name of fairness, and they feel very strongly about that as well. And I think that if we can't eliminate the whole idea of the prohibition and accommodation, we should at least reinstitute the accommodation in the name of fairness. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Paul. Another? Okay, David A.
Thank you very much, both of you. Yeah, I'm reaching out to you two on the usual subject, which is the prohibition overlays, because you two are pretty strongly in favor of maintaining them, and I think that really is an error in understanding what the requirements of zoning as a legislative act should require more proof of impact and effect by the petitioning parties. It's a very vaguely worded, outdated piece of legislation that exists only for this type of zoning. Now, before too long, the full board is going to be hearing an appeal for a denial of permit for a gas station on North State Street. And currently the recommendation from County Council is that the appeal should be ignored and the permit should be accepted because there is land use entitlement attached to the zoning for a serial violator that is the permit applicant right now for this gas station. But we have no ability of the public to protest that and actually get any traction. Whereas for any reason whatsoever, the public can petition and often get these zoning overlays prohibiting cannabis for any reason whatsoever. It is an unfair process. It is poorly worded section of an ordinance, and I really think it needs to be revisited on a logical level. Have a good day. Thank you very much. Continue with your work. I do appreciate what you do, but I think that, and I call in repeatedly because this is a really specific and important piece of, it has to do with the merits and who gets traction for what reason. And we have to start looking at the fairness of the process and the definition of arbitrary and the definition of irrational as applied to the zoning legislation, which is in the county plan. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. All right. Any other public expression?
None online.
All right. So announcements? Okay. Everyone. Okay, we will adjourn the meeting at 11:40. Thank you, everybody.